Hello, everyone. Today, we're going to talk about student-created podcasting. By the end of this video, you should be able to identify ways you could use student-created podcasting in your classroom, as well as you'll be able to create a podcast using a platform called Anchor. So real quick, some stats about podcasting. Right now, there are 700,000 active podcasts in the world. Podcasts can be found in 100 different languages. Global monthly podcast listeners are forecast to grow more than sixfold from 287 million listeners in 2016 to 1.85 billion listeners in 2023. The top growing countries for podcasting in 2019 were Chile, Argentina, Peru, Mexico, and China. So all that to say that podcasting is an increasingly growing platform and one that more of the world is becoming exposed to. So why have students create podcasts? Well, one, podcasting helps develop student voices, right? Students are the ones creating it and narrating it, perhaps, or interviewing someone on it or being interviewed, right? It develops their voice. It enables students to produce media rather than just consume media. It allows all students to participate, all students to have a voice, like a physical voice in the podcast. It provides an authentic audience, right? They can share it with each other, or in theory, if they like, they can share it with anyone else in the world, right? So it provides an authentic audience. How could it be used in a classroom or a school? One common way is a research project, right? So instead of having students research a topic and write a paper about it, they could research a topic and then create a podcast about that topic. It could be used to interview someone significant to your unit of study, maybe a grandparent or something like that, who could have experienced something that you're studying about in, say, history class. It could be used as a regular classroom broadcast, right? Where every week or two, a podcast comes out to update parents and students about what's going on in the class. It could be used as a book review or book report, to do a book review or book report. It could be used for student-led direct instruction, so assign different students content that they need to deliver over a podcast, and all the other students have to listen to those podcasts in order to gain that content, in order to learn that content. It could be used for storytelling purposes. It could be used to raise awareness about a particular issue. It could be used to document a field trip, or even to record a class discussion, right? So an absent student could access the recording and still catch up on the class discussion that they missed. Lots of different ways it could be used. How do you organize it, right? We'll get into how to use the actual podcasting platform in a minute or two. But before that, really important, before you get kids actually making their own podcast, it's super important that they first listen to a quality kid-friendly podcast that allows them to get ideas about what makes a good podcast, right? How are people talking? What questions are they asking? What do the commercials sound like if you're going to have them film a commercial? What are the transition noises in between different clips? How does background music add to the overall feel of the podcast, right? So have them listen to quality kid-friendly podcasts. There are also a lot of podcasts you can find online that are made by kids. That's probably even better. If you're having them create a podcast in groups, make sure to assign roles so different students are responsible for different aspects of the podcast. So maybe one person's in charge of the script, the other person is the producer, and one person's the director, one person's the marketer in charge of creating the commercial or whatever. Right, but make sure every person has a role if you're doing it in a group setting. And really, really, really important, before they start recording, super important, they script their podcast. Podcasts don't turn out well when the student host takes the microphone and doesn't have a plan for what they're going to say and they just talk, right? It's not going to be a very good podcast. So super important they script their podcast in some way. One really helpful way to script it, in my opinion, is using Post-it notes. So for this particular podcast, a student was doing a research project and they had to share 10 different facts about their topic that they're researching. So what this student did is they wrote their 10 facts on the Post-it notes, or maybe 11 facts on 11 different Post-it notes. And then they had an introduction Post-it note, a conclusion Post-it note. And then by laying it all out here and visualizing it this way, they can then insert a transition noise here, insert background music here, put in a commercial right here or whatever, right? But they're able to visualize it really well when it's in Post-it note form like that, right? However, not necessary. What's more important is that they script it in some way. That's just one way to do it. I'll link this Google Slides presentation in the description of this YouTube video, hopefully. And here are some other great resources that I'm not going to go into now, but they're really great. This New York Times resource includes a series of lesson plans on how to introduce students to podcasting, introduce them to well-made podcasts and then get them to make their own. Um, that's a good resource, but all these are really good resources if you want to check them out. So the overall question is, how do you actually do this though? How do you teach a kid to make a podcast? I can't recommend enough this platform called Anchor. Right here it says the easiest way to make a podcast ever. I don't have a ton of experience making podcasts, but from what I've done making podcasts with students, I would highly agree. It's a super easy to use platform. Anchor is both an app and a website. Both are super user friendly. I'm going to show you how to use the website today, but once again, students could easily do this on their phone as well. Um, so let's see what it looks like. I would suggest if you're doing this with students, film a 3 to 4 minute screencast of you showing them how to use Anchor, and they should be good to go from there. It really is very simple and intuitive. Okay, so the website is anchor.fm. So not anchor.com, it's anchor.fm. Once you go there, it's going to prompt you to create an account. I would suggest creating an account with your CNG email. So by logging in with Google, so where it says create an account, just click continue with Google and then click on your CNG email and it should create the account for you. Once you get there, it's going to prompt you to create your first episode, or you can just click up here where it says new episode. Okay, so this page right here is your episode design page. Okay, there are 4 buttons right here: record, messages, library, transitions, and then right here is where your episode is going to be built on the right hand side. So record is where you're going to first record yourself, right? So I'm going to pretend that I have an assignment from my teacher, and my assignment is to create a podcast about people's experiences during the quarantine in Bogota. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce my podcast. Hello, and welcome to the Bogota Quarantine Podcast. My name is John Mark Filsick. All right, so just filmed a quick little clip. My suggestion for students doing this is to film little clips and then piece them all together. It's a lot easier because than just filming one 10-minute clip, because obviously if you make a mistake, it's a lot easier to fix it. Also, after you record, you can rearrange the order. If you don't like the order, you can add transitions in between things you're saying. Super easy. So I would suggest doing little clips. Right here is the clip I just downloaded, or I just recorded it. I'm going to stick it right here at the top of my podcast, my episode. I'm gonna after I have that recording, I want to add a transition. So I go down here to transitions. There's a lot of different transition noises you can do. I'm going to choose this one called a clue. I'm going to drag and drop it into my podcast. Right now I have that first recording of me introducing the podcast. Then I have a transition noise, which I'll show you in a second. And I'm going to do another recording. Today on our show, we'll be interviewing Theodore Filsick about his experience during the quarantine. Welcome to the show, Theodore. So I've saved that clip. Once again, it takes a couple seconds to process, depending on your internet. And I'm going to drag that clip over here. I know, unfortunately, I'm wearing these headphones, so I know it could be hard to listen to this, but if you listen carefully, I'm going to try to play what I have of my episode so far so that you can hear it. So turn up your volume if it's not up right now. Hello, and welcome to the Bogota Quarantine Podcast. My name is John Mark Filsick. Today on our show, we'll be interviewing Theodore Filsick about his experience during the quarantine. Welcome to the show, Theodore. Okay, so I think you hopefully got that idea. Hopefully you could hear a little bit of that. But really, you add little clips, little noises, little transitions. You can add, if you have noises or any sort of sound or music already uploaded on your computer, you can add it from here, the library button. Messages is a really cool option. I'm sure it could be leveraged in really cool ways in a classroom. Basically, it's for listeners. If they call in, they can leave a voice message and you can insert their voice message into here, which could be really cool, especially for kids who are stuck in their houses, perhaps, while they're doing this, to get other kids to call in and leave messages and stuff that they could put into their episodes. Could be a really cool idea. But overall, you drag and drop all your recordings, all your transition noises, etc. Once you're all done with your episode, you click Save Episode. It'll prompt you to name your episode. If you haven't already set up your podcast, it'll prompt you to name your podcast and create some sort of album artwork for the podcast description. And then it should give you a link and you can share it with people. Super easy. I think that pretty much summarizes it all. It's a super easy platform. I hope it inspires you to maybe try doing podcasting with your students. Thank you so much for participating. Please reach out to me. My name is John Mark Filsick, jfilsick at cng.edu. If you have any questions, I'll put my Google Slides that has my email in it in the description for this YouTube video, and hopefully we'll set up some times for people to meet via Zoom with me if you have any further questions on how to make this work. Thanks so much, and please reach out with any questions. Bye.